It takes about 2 minutes.
Okay.
But anything you say from this point forward will be on the replay.
We hold it as evidence against me?
Yeah, that's right. Here, let me make sure it's all hooked up.
Is that okay with lighting and everything?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. Yeah, it's on. It's just going to take about another minute before people start coming in. Yeah, they're starting to. So we're going to be on Zoom, so I can only see the comments on my page, just for those of you who would like to make comments. Yeah, it's a good way to start the month. November the 1st, October was a hell of a month, wasn't it? We got a new friend here, and we're going to get to know her just like we always do in front of everybody else. Ananta Kranti, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Ananta Kranti. Yeah. So welcome to Soul Speaks 5D. Thank you for coming on. Honoring us with your space, honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us. I just woke up 30 minutes ago.
What time is it?
It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh. But I stay up until usually between 6 and 8.
All right. Okay.
By the time I get to bed. Okay. But yeah, I was just I actually woke up today going, wow, I feel pretty good today. The last couple of mornings have been, when you're out doing all that work there in dream state, and you can just feel like all your muscles are sore. But it was just an appropriate ending to a very powerful month. We have a lot of people that want to come on the show, and I don't normally, I don't, Morgan does. Morgan will find people that she typically does the scheduling, but I saw your post that you put up last week, and I thought, wow, that's capturing what it's coming down to, because, and I'll just read that real quick. I'll read part of it, but
okay.
Like we like to talk about, the human experience. Mm-hmm. We got 2 hashtags: I am soul and the human is the hero, because nothing happens unless the human aligns with everything else, right?
Right.
But in real time intel, like what's happening now, where are you at now? So last week you put up a post, and I share a lot of posts to Soulogy, but I put the post, I actually put it on my page because here it is, because I thought it was really good, and like most of the expressions, probably all the expressions we all put out there, it is what it is today, right? I mean, it can change. Everything can change. Literally, we wake up and there's a new truth. But I'm going to read this part of this real quick. And what moved me to see if you wanted to come on. You were saying that there's a lot of people, well, you see people pretending to know what's going on. And that sounds good. It resonates for others who feel comfortable when they believe they know what's going on. Thousands will follow a narrative that supports a belief that gets them out of the immense insecurity that comes for the ego when there's nothing to hold on to. It's unbearable for the separate sense of self to know and to simply be here in all of it. Be, capital B-E. Nobody really knows all the details, yet it's quite obvious a profound transformation of consciousness is taking shape. To be consistently present in the moment, it takes courage. Sovereignty, which is a word thrown around a lot, and you put it in parentheses, is a carrot for the separate sense of self. Otherwise, there's no need to claim something called sovereignty. The very idea of that is a moving away. How about being fully in the world and not of it? I thought the key sentence here was, otherwise, there is no need to claim something called sovereignty. The very idea of that is a movement away. I put that up on my page, and a couple of people were like, yeah, but sovereignty is sovereignty. And they kind of held on to it. And I'm looking forward to the day when somebody can make a post and nobody comments. But I thought it was good because I got it. I got what you were saying. You weren't really pointing anybody out. You were just saying, hey, we're made up of these belief systems which shroud our soul. And as we expand, certain things are falling away, such as forgiveness. If forgiveness is important, but let's face it, wherever we're landing, what people are calling 5D or multi-D, there is no forgiveness because there's no infringement on somebody's space, physically or otherwise. And so when you use the word sovereignty, because like everything else, such as ascension or twin flame or so many of these other words, they don't have the same meaning anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
And sovereignty to me is one of those words that's
Exactly.
it's becoming
Exactly.
right. So I thought it was, and you could put a lot of words with sovereignty.
Yeah.
In place of sovereignty in that sentence, but I thought it was good because of what you pointed out, which is, and I've said this for a long time about myself and others, just observing, we go from one belief system that might be a box this big, and somebody presents a belief system that's a bigger box, and we jump onto that one. And that's okay. That's a natural progression, a natural evolution. But and really to sum up your wait a minute. Just had it. That wouldn't be good if my mic went out. But to sum up what you were saying is just be present, right? And like my friend said a couple of weeks ago, he said, we're learning what it is to be human, but we don't know what human is. Exactly. So to me,
exactly, yeah,
right, to me what you said was just be present. And I've been saying for months, maybe the biggest challenge we're having is getting used to it.
is to just be here, because if there's that carrot of I'm a sovereign being, like then it kind of, in the first place, when it first comes out and gets released into the field, right, then there's a recognition, oh yeah, I'm not here to be told what to do, I'm not here to be, all of that. But then the sense of a self wants to claim its sovereignty. And right there, that's it, back in the box. Right. Right back in the box. It's a limitation. It's and then it becomes everybody's rap. And then it's just like there's no energy in it. It's just like the word enlightenment got worn out, But what it actually points to in the first place still exists. It just, the word has to drop. Yeah. And to actually be here without any word to hold on to claim, and be here with nothing to hold on to is the scariest thing for what we call the ego. It's the scariest thing for the sense of self, to just actually be here with no branch to hang on to and just fall. That nothingness, that's everything, right? Exactly. It's that nothingness. And the other thing too is like the whole sovereignty thing. Yeah. Because obviously we know what's going on. There's enough information out there the last 10 years. And I've been saying this, like, how much more information do we need? We know what we are. I'm so happy you're saying that. You know what I mean? Like, we know. So for me, it's beyond sovereignty. It's beyond surrender. Exactly. It's this space that you go, I am a soul, and I've done this before, and nobody can get to me. Even if you put me in prison or threaten me, or it doesn't matter. I am a soul, and I'll be right back. I've always been this. Yeah. I've never not been this. Why should I need to claim? Who needs to claim that? Yeah. And yeah, there are many. I was pondering, like this afternoon, I was pondering because I see little things everywhere, and I was pondering on the word awakening. What is it to be awake? And there's this kind of idea that there is something that's awake and there's something that's asleep, and awakening is never ending. It's a process that's always opening and deepening and revealing. So to say I'm awake, there are many stages to that.
Mm-hmm.
Many stages of awakeness. There's no stages to what we are, but the stages of realization. And when that's kind of like in its beginning stages, then these words and this rap is kind of like the thing that takes the shape of, now I'm awake, I speak this way. But to actually have nothing to hold on to in the way that I speak, and be the openness of nothing coming through and speaking itself with no fixed language or agenda, is freedom from being the one who's awake.
Yeah. A couple things. So we've done like 3,000 shows this as of
Amazing.
October. Yeah,
well
it's been a heck of a ride. So this happened like in October, but just as a reference point, I used to ask people in the early days, and I still do sometimes, when did you wake up? And the best answer I ever got was this young lady. She was probably like 20, and she said, this morning. and I started laughing, and she said, no, every morning I wake up, I'm waking up again. And I got what she was saying. And then somebody put a post up in the Soulogy group, one of those posts where you ask a question, and they said, how does somebody know if they're awake? And again, there was all these answers, right? I don't usually comment on posts, but it was like, I got to answer that because that was a great question. I just put, they don't know they're awake.
Right.
It's not even like that. It's just, and I think that's another thing that's happening is we, like your post talks about, the what we will call the ego wants to understand and wants to make sure that nothing's in the room smarter than it. So it's got to be able to understand everything. It's got to be able to define everything
and have
so that
the
it
information.
Yes.
Have the information that's the right information, that now I've got the information and I know, and all of this, and the willingness to say, I don't fucking know what's coming.
That's right.
This is advanced, really.
Yeah.
The willingness to actually get out of the way.
Yeah. So that's one of the crossroads we're at, right? I mean, the soul is the free energy of the universe. I mean, that pretty much says it all. It's free. It's got to be able to move. And
free of sovereignty.
Yeah, if it can't move, then it's not free, but we know it's free. So how does it move? Well, if we try to just contain that within the human vessel, then you start to have an issue. Oh, I can't move, I can't leave my house, or I can't do this, or I can.
Yeah.
No, it's within our own space. We know this as within, without. So yeah. And then I think the other thing that's happening, which your post kind of exemplifies, is even in the light worker circles, our definitions, our roles, our understandings, everything is up for change or to be removed and released. I mean, we're talking about the yogi guru type of scenario that was served us well, right? But now it's becoming, everybody's becoming self-empowered. Everybody's becoming their own healer. Everybody's becoming their own source of information because it's just happening. And so that's having a interesting effect on some of what you see out there, at least from my opinion. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, and it's kind of time of cancel culture as well. Everything that gets kind of put in place then needs to be cancelled because it is that and it's not that. It is that and it's not that.
Yeah.
You know, like every time there's a place to land in any kind of fixed position or idea, or it just is not that. It's not that. It's not, you know, it's again and again cancelled. And this leaves the free, open spaciousness of being that just keeps on revealing itself. And of course, in the beginning stages of when a mind is opening beyond itself, in the beginning stages, they kind of want to have a place to land and a language and a, you know, but there's this continuous letting go of the next identity that's formed. Who will you be? Who will you be? You lose all of that. It's death. It's ego death constantly.
Yeah. There's been a lot. There's been a lot of that. It's been like a massacre in 2021.
Yeah.
But seriously, I mean, I was watching this guy last night, Pete Evans. He's in Australia. He's a pretty well-known guy there. He was like a celebrity chef, and I think he did maybe he was in some acting, but he's very well known, and he's come out as a result of the quarantines and the COVID stuff, and become really outspoken. And he was in an interesting conversation with a guy, I can't remember his name, Jason Miles. They were having just a chat like this. And Pete Evans, he's been on the show before. I'm gonna try to get him back on, but he was telling the guys, like, you know, everybody's talking about the doom and what's wrong, and you know, and he said, I find this so amazing that we're living in this time when there's this incredible paradox where everything is in, you know, in his own, I'm saying my own words, but well, that paradox is the 0 point. The paradox is the middle road. Which, from a human perspective, it makes no sense, because what side am I going to be on, you know, kind of thing. But I thought it was interesting because he said, why isn't anybody talking about the other polarity, these incredible individuals and therefore collective expanding so rapidly? Like that's huge. Like, what do you want to create? What do you want to be? You know, and it was really refreshing to hear him talking, because this is what we talk about on this show, and you don't see a lot of it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know? So much focus on the dark forces and this, and you know, there's so much. Yeah, it's it kind of, what one believes becomes their experience.
Exactly.
So as soon as they start believing that there's an us and a them, and they're against us and they're trying to do this to us, then that's what becomes your whole experience, and that's where you live, and that's your world, and it becomes a part of the collective reality. You know, and there is this freedom of just not being part of any kind of battle that's going on, and just remaining open to okay, and this and this. You know, I sense that it's the beginning. It's a, you know, I heard many years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I received the information that there's a mutation taking place, a mutation where we actually, you know, some call it 5D, some call it ascension, some call it this, or it doesn't matter what you call it, but a mutation where we become the next, we turn into the next, you know, we wasn't always this, we wasn't in these forms. So the mutation into the next of what this can be, there's no, of course that's happening. It's so present, it's so obvious, whereas 10 years ago it wasn't obvious.
Right.
And so now it's in the consciousness field. Many are getting scared, many are trying to kind of like make sense of it, make it something, turn it this or that. But there's no, as soon as you're holding on to, oh, this is what's happening, oh, now I know what's happening, you know, it's a limitation, and it's incredible what we are. There's no limitation to it.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, what you're looking for is right in front of your face. You know, we've all lost something and we go back and see, or my keys are right here the whole time, or but it's like that. And it was interesting too with listening to these two gentlemen last night, because I don't see, I see like your post alluded many things. One of the things that alluded was these belief systems that get thrown out there and we grab onto them, and we've all done it. But we're continuing to let go, and there's nothing left. Right? You know what I mean? I mean, so we're getting
the large proportion are hang on to it, and then it becomes a thing, and then it becomes a movement. And because so many are kind of like just kind of beginning or whatever, then that movement is something to fit into that's now spiritual, and now is the 5D ascension group or whatever. But yeah, it's this constant seeing through that. Okay, let go of sovereignty. Can you? What happens if you let go of sovereignty? Now what have you got? Now who will you be?
right.
Who will you be if you can't claim anything? What are you now?
You know, if you listen to, I caught a 3-minute video of Dolores Cannon yesterday. And of course, everybody knows her work.
I don't know. Who's it?
Dolores Cannon. She's the one who,
I've heard the name. I
yeah,
haven't.
she wrote several books. She is was the original QHHT practitioner, where they do regression. So she ended up, you know, having thousands of sessions with people, and she put the information that was coming through together, which talked about the first wave and the second wave and the new earth and all that. But I was watching this little clip, and she was talking about now I can't remember. She was talking about new earth. And of course, everything's a metaphor. Everything's a metaphor. That's another thing we need to get over. We need to understand it's a message of energy.
Exactly.
So she was talking about the new earth, you know, and a lot of people, including her, Edgar Casey, other people, talked about the earth splitting, and there's two earths. And again, this is a metaphor to me.
Yes.
But listening to you, I was going, you know, everyone wants to know how you get to 5D or how you get to new earth, which I think it's already here, whatever. But
it's already here. It's always been here.
Exactly. But like talking to you, because I try to put everything in the human terms. So like talking to you, I'm going, okay, you know, it's pretty simple. If you want to focus on all that us versus them, you're going to be in the old earth. Yes. You know, and if you want to focus on what can I create, who can I love, who wants to be with me mutually, and just you know, just that, right? Nature, that's new earth. But you know, and then as far as do they live side by side, do they actually split? No, who cares? Because
this is the real where the division is happening, what I'm finding. Because you know, I'm naturally drawn to certain places, cafes, restaurants, people, where suddenly we're just having the conversation, you know, that's in what you're just talking about. As soon as this is the division. As soon as you're in the fear and the panic of what's coming and all of the judgments of what we need to do and who's right and who's wrong and who's, you know, all that kind of, that's the division that you divide right there. That's it. It's a consciousness that is appearing as a division, but of course we can never divide what is whole. So
we couldn't have a human experience without it. That's the value of the human experience, is the expanse of, is the distance between polarities, right? I mean, and I mean, I feel more than ever that this whole COVID thing was the greatest idea we ever came up with, because it's I mean, if you look at it, for everything that we're have taken an issue with. Oh, I can't leave my house, or I got to get a vaccine, or I got to wear a mask, or whatever. These things, if you look at the energies behind it, they're actually serving us very well. Like we have to be alone with ourselves. We have to be alone with people that we've lived with for years that we never talked to. We have to be, the kids are no longer going to school, so they're home. That energy's there. We're not, people are working remotely now, so they're not going into the, so everything is being altered. If you look at it, the polarity, you look at, wow, this is actually serving us, because we're also being given all of these energetic presentations, and we're starting to go, I don't think I want to do that. People are actually, people are actually, or I want to do that. Or, I mean, because I've seen people come on the show and say, I got the jab, and I'm good with it in my heart. My higher self told me to do it, or people saying the other way. But, and I think that's the other thing too, is this, whatever we want to call it, this advanced consciousness that's coming out in us, is one that stays in its own lane. Like, if I'm looking at you and saying, oh, she's not awake, or, oh, she's got this, or, oh, I'm not at 100%, not even for a moment. I don't see anybody walking on water yet, so I think we need to just kind of mind our own business. Right?
Yeah, this whole this virus thing, it so represents, it's a representative, actually. It's like it's not even that, it's a representative of all that it brings, and how much we buy into it, and how we then respond to everything around it was already there in unconscious or shadow, whatever you want to call it, but it's brought it all up, and it's bringing it all out. And the fear and the manipulation and everything, there's so much anger, all the stuff around it is that representative. It's just that whatever it is, it's been placed there as a representative, and it's just brought this whole thing. And it's not even about that. It's really, there's so much coming. There's so much. And as you said, it's choices. We have to make inner choices that are not governed choices.
Right.
And that really comes up from so deep within. If we don't go here and go like, well, I do this because, but we actually feel that energy coming up and let that be the guide. It's another thing. It's another way of moving. Where is the government? The government is coming up from deep inside and making the laws in place. That's how I'm kind of, because I need to take another flight soon, and I had to check today about that. And the moment I started going there, and all of the thing around it started coming, I was like, these are the rules. And then I'm looking inside like, okay, what way is this gonna move? What's the law here? It's really, it's not about that little C thing, or V thing.
Well, I mean, that's right. And if we look back at this experience that we've had, everything is a suggestion. Everything is put forward as a suggestion. Even if you look at the mandates aren't laws. You've got many leaders that are saying we're going to do this, and they're not asking anybody. So, it's just a suggestion. It's an idea. It's not even an inducement, although there are things that lure people to make that decision, and you might call it coercion, but it's our decision. So if you, I'll use me as an example. If I was told, you can get a passport and you can go to Australia to be with Morgan, but you've got to take a jab. I don't know what my answer would be, but I would decide when that was actually reality and presented to me. I don't know. Do I have enough alchemical mastery at this point that I can take something in and find equilibrium with it and basically transform whatever, right? I mean, I tell this story a lot. I was homeless for 2 years. I ate McDonald's 5 days a week. It's horrible for you, but it was alchemy for me. I talked to the food. I said, this is all I can afford. Thank you, Mother. Thank you, Father, for this food. And we became one. And I was able to actually get in better and better physical and nutritional, shape, which made no sense. But this is what we are.
This is this beautiful what you're saying, because it's really, I'm experiencing it more and more. There is a whole new way of interacting with absolutely everything. The old way of everything, what we interact with, everything we take in. I've got a bottle of essential oil in my hand now, but food, the drink, everything we're in conversation with, how we interact with it there's a whole different way of communicating with everything in this multiverse that brings it into its own reality by where we come from. So including the whole idea of awakening, what that was is not what that is. It's every word is taking a different meaning, a different shape, and it cannot last long before it's blown and remade. And so anything we attach to, the idea that if you eat McDonald's, how many days a week was it?
5 days a week. Sometimes more. Well, where can you eat for $5?
What do you eat now?
I mostly take in about 80 to 90% organic juice, like 75% vegetable, 25% fruit, and I eat pretty much an avocado a day. But I break down. I'll go get. I went and got some Italian food this past weekend just to treat myself. But
do you notice the difference between the McDonald's and what you're living now?
Well, when I ate the McDonald's, that was 10 years ago, 10 years ago. And I was walking a lot, like probably about 8 to 10 miles a day. That was just my meditation or whatever, my survival. I don't know what it was. But I was able to get in the best shape I'd been in since I was like 20. Wow. But there was a lot of walking. I was dancing in clubs at night.
Did you sleep rough?
Did I sleep rough?
You said you were homeless. Did you sleep rough or?
Well, it depends. I'd say about a third of the time I slept outside, a third of the time I slept on a friend's couch, and maybe a third of the time I slept in a hotel room. Wow. But it was the way I woke up, and even though I didn't know it at the time, I was consciously working with energy. And to your point, but I will say this: I started juicing in earnest middle of June, right after the Soulogy Fest when I got home, and the changes after probably 2 months of purging, 2 months of detoxifying, 2 months of detoxifying. I noticed immediately lots of things: clarity, my vibration, my lightness of being, my ability to have what I would call conscious dimensional experiences. Lucid dreams increased. It's still increasing. I would say some by location, but that had kind of occurred before. But and really for me, it's just been what my body's telling me. I'm not putting it on anybody. I'm not saying, hey, you need to go do this or have to go do that. But for me, my body was telling me, we're going to do this. And so now it's, if I go a day without juicing, it's not often. And if I do, it's because the energies have knocked me on my ass and I can't get out of bed, or I'm laying on the couch, and but mostly it's coconut water,
Yeah.
and juicing. If I do, I rarely eat meat, but I might now and then. Nothing major, but I feel it going away, and I'm not judging it. I'm not judging it. I'm having some habits over these months have dropped away. No sense in getting into it. Everybody knows me pretty well, but I'm not doing a lot of things I used to do. But the thing is, it's like what I noticed is what has been important is when I do want to do something, smoke, drink, eat something, whatever it might be. I'm noticing two things. One, if I do it, I'm not I don't have a sense of judgment, self-judgment or self-deprecation for doing something. And the other thing is, sensory wise, it's like an incredible experience. It's like making love, like you eat a piece of pizza, maybe I ate a piece of pizza 3 weeks ago or something from the corner place, and it was like the greatest piece of pizza I ever had. But at the same time, my body's saying, oh, no, you're not going to do that. Or
Yeah.
So there's
I
something
can
going.
totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has your body, the voice of the body, I know we think of the body as just the physical body, but has that gotten louder over the last few months for you? Are you experiencing anything like that?
Over the last few months, I had COVID in August, a couple of months ago, and I can tell you that I've been on organic diet for years and years, but with a few little, whatever you want to call them, vices. Like I used to eat a lot of chocolate and like to drink the best coffee, but COVID cut that. It
Really?
was it just really was like a 100% movement in a direction that was everything to. I experienced the COVID a bit like there were some changes happening in the system. Of course, that thing is going to make some changes, but it also changed everything. It's changed a lot of things in my psyche, in the sense that, I just was definitely moving in a direction that didn't include chocolate anymore, or coffee, or anything that wasn't kind of like moving the system to another frequency, like to its most calm and re-energized and nourished. And it just kind of changed a lot of things. And then in my psyche, it's like, okay, I'm not having that anymore. I'm not having that anymore. I don't have space for that. No, that cut. Radical, like a radical reset. I felt it like. And soon following that, I just kind of booked a flight and took space from the things that like cause stress or whatever, and just took time out. So, and I really feel like that allowed for a whole new dance, or there's something that I can't put words into. It's just delicious.
Was your, when you had COVID, did you have like a lot of stomach issues, like digestion, or just acid, or just aching or bloating or anything like
A
that?
lot of body ache, a lot of pain
Yeah.
in the body for some days. But no, the digestion, I don't
Wasn't bad.
recall. No.
Yeah. Because
But the
you,
pain in the body. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
See, I'm not sure. I mean, if I from my own personal knowing, we both got it in Florida when it first came out. And we both knew we did. We didn't get diagnosed. And then it would have been about 3 weeks ago today, maybe 4. It would have been around that 8th or something or a little bit earlier than that. I got something on a Monday, and it came like that. And I laid on the couch for 5 days, and I documented some of this, but what I was getting at, and I don't know officially if I had it. I know I had it, but and my friend got it the same day. There was a lot of stuff going on that week, and my friend ended up transitioning, Franco De Nicola. But what I was going to say in light of what you were talking about was, it was the entire episode was a high level, energetic, transformational experience. All my voices were present. And one of the things that occurred was similar to what you're talking about. Certain things were leaving. And then certain things were altered slightly. Like when I went through it, I was like, I'm not drinking coffee anymore because I was sick. I was just like, but when I came out of it, just like the synchronicity always works and the sequential aspect of what we're experiencing, a friend sends me a text out of nowhere and says, if you drink coffee and you sprinkle baking soda, a pinch of baking soda in it, it'll neutralize the acid. So anyway, I went to the organic store, and just on a whim, I bought some organic coffee, and then I started this process. So I drink a couple of cups a day now, not a whole pot anymore, and I don't have any issues. So that was one thing. This is an example, but the main thing was, in the process of this transformation and this experience, sitting with COVID, and how it presented itself to me, which was this whole procession of demons. Will you take them into your heart? Are you afraid? And so on and so on and so on. But I was told you're from a cellular or even an atomic level, your body is being reformed.
I was knowing that. I was knowing my body was being changed, even though like every virus will change the body, if we get HEP or, there'll always be a change, but this was different. It was really like, okay, this is a reset. There was really something different. Yeah. And it really, really was like there was a kind of a cutting of anything that took energy into a lower frequency. It was like, no. Like engaging in whatever with anybody. It was like, no,
right,
no, like because something in the system wants to gather all the right whatever to do the work it needs to do to come to a new place. And it really was clear.
Yeah.
Like radical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you been like this? Or have you always been this weird? I say that to everybody. I'm just messing with you. Most of the people that come on, just I'd say 85%, it's, hey, I woke up, I was born this way. I thought everyone was like me. I got shut down at some point, either late, like preteen, or once I got out of high school and went into the world, and I went into the matrix. But then I had a couple of things happen, traumas, and I kind of reawoke. I've got guides speaking to me. I've got the universe is speaking to me. Things are happening, and they get estranged from their family. They break relationships, and they travel to weird places and do weird things. I get the impression from looking at your stuff that you've been doing this a while.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in very, very early school, I just, there was a knowing that I'm not going to do this life they're telling me, that no, I'm not doing that. I'm going free. Like the moment I am able to get a plane ticket, I'm out of here. And yeah, I left and went for a free life. I think like age 19, I left England and went to travel the world or whatever, and lived nearly 30 years, 27 years in Asia, in Thailand. And I got in, I think I was in my 20s. Yeah, I was in my 20s when I kind of got onto the official spiritual path, like went into long meditation retreats and went into ashram and stuff. But then, it was over while I was in jail. Actually, I was a few years solitary confined in Japan.
In Japan. Wow. That's
And in
I
silence, no speaking, 3 years, nearly 3 years.
3 years solitary.
Yeah,
Wow. I've been
almost.
I've been in solitary for like 24 hours. Um, and I've been in a few times, but always just like overnight. This is mostly when I was younger, but
When you
the last
needed a
time was,
place to stay.
yeah. Right. Light workers are hell raisers, right? But yeah, I was in for 34 days, and that was early in my reawakening. And that, even though there was a 25-minute cell, there was an amplification. Even though I'd been homeless and I was in a constant communication, but there was an amplification in the environment of my own presence with myself.
Exactly.
It was very strange.
Yeah.
It was a very internalized experience. I can't imagine
Amazing.
what it would be
Amazing.
like 3 years.
Yeah,
That
it
did you
ended. Yeah, it ended.
did your relationship with your presence? I'm sure. I mean,
Mm.
what was the good polarity of 3 years in solitary?
It was the end of who I thought I was.
Mm,
It was over. It was gone. Um, yeah, I became, although I didn't become anything, I became the space of the cell,
yeah.
which was aware of itself, and that expanded beyond the cell and beyond the country and beyond the. So that space of being, because I was also taken to a factory to work every day
Mm,
like a slave. So that space of being was the movement of me, you know?
wow.
So, yeah, I mean, but I was very, before I got locked up, I had already consciously surrendered. I had a guru. I surrendered my past. I took a name. I got my name there in India. So I was already surrendered to the exploration of eternal truth. So yeah, I had all the time to be with that constantly, while at the same time being totally triggered by the emotional, psychological distraction of the ego going on, while at the same time seeing through it and finding what is free.
Yeah.
What is still free, what they cannot take,
Right.
They've taken it all. They've taken absolutely everything. I cannot have a visit. I cannot have a letter. I cannot have nothing. They've taken it all. But then what revealed was what cannot be taken.
Right.
And in that revelation came a tiny smile started to reveal itself inside as I was getting screamed at by guards and whatever. That smile began to, it was like, this can't be taken. This smile is free.
Right.
And that began to grow and grow and grow. So even in the face of being screamed at, there was this knowing of what can't be taken and what can't be hurt and what can't be, so, and I feel that, that changed absolutely everything in my reality, of course. And coming back into the world and all that madness was a process to integrate that into living as a personality again. Because if you're not in any kind of relating, the personality is non-existent. It doesn't have a role to play.
Yeah.
So coming back and reforming again this into personality play and being in the world with triggers and everything was a process. And yeah, I started teaching a few years after that and facilitating that realization for others. And yeah, I've been doing that for 20 years or something like that.
Far out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's hard I mean, to come out and reassimilate yourself with the world. like you were saying, triggers, personality. That's a interesting. I kind of feel like that. Well, certainly we have a personality or personalities, depending on what part of our life you want to talk about.
Yeah.
That's certainly, I like the way you put that with, functioning in the world. And I feel like that, we all have a soul signature.
Mm.
So our soul has a certain traits, let's just say, and be it strengths, weaknesses, whatever, or not weaknesses, but certain strengths, certain things that we illuminate, based on our signature. But the the personality part, I was listening to Elon Musk the other day. He was in an interview, and they were asking, they were saying something to him about how he had spoken to some of his employees, because he works like 20 hours a day, right? And he was saying, I could be doing this, I could be doing that. So it sounded kind of harsh. And he said, I made a lot of mistakes, and I don't make as many as I used to. But when I look for somebody, I just used to look at basically at their resume and their education and so on. Now I never considered their personality. And I thought, what the hell is he talking about? But what he was talking about was, in the personality, their kindness, their heart either comes through or it doesn't. So the conclusion of what he was saying was that he sees that people with good hearts, which I think in some way comes through a personality, but people with good hearts, and a company with built with good hearts, or a team or an organization or whatever, their productivity is just like through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's something about the heart, almost like I'm reading between the lines, but like people that make decisions through the heart, like that are going to question the ethics or the moral standing of what they're being subjected to, or whatever the case is, which I thought was interesting from somebody like that, because I've never been a real big, follower of him. But yeah, I mean, what was that like to, I mean, you were in an environment where you were triggerless, I would imagine, almost triggerless. If you have people screaming at you and you're in these conditions, and I know they treat you like a dog, I mean, you must have been smiling through that stuff by the time you got out of there, like you were talking
By
about.
the time I got out, not when I first went in,
Yeah.
I was totally like locked up and in fear and everything in the first 10 months, and come to a point of suicidal. But and that's just it. The ego is getting broken down, and there's a death happening, because you got to let go of the world out there. You got to let go of all your dreams. You got to face your mind 24/7, and at the same time get, like, although we were in silence, I was with Japanese women who were in there for murdering mostly their husbands. So that amount of like hatred and all of these energies that are in the field are in the field. So how do you find your way out of there? You need to transcend what's in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And the system and the intelligence of the system found a way to, I say, go out the door of this river of greed and hatred and all of that was kind of like being projected in my direction quite often, because I was the only white woman, the only Westerner. So all of that coming at all these kind of daggers, and then finding a way to like go out the door into a space that, and actually what was the vehicle that I used to go out the door into a space of absolute beauty and bliss and love and truth was through the doorway of food.
Really?
Mm. Well, the first few months I was in there, I couldn't eat at all. I couldn't put food in my mouth, so I just lost. I don't know, 18 kilos or whatever. But the moment that I started to put a little spoon in my mouth and close my eyes and totally connect and totally go with it, become one with it.
Yes.
You know, like there's nothing else in existence. If there was carrot, I become carrot. Like, and so this kind of like tantric way of being with what's in my mouth, you know, I would go with this and like really appreciating whoever grew the carrot, the growing of it, the carrying of it, the washing of it, the cooking, all that was working in me. I had my eyes closed, and I would just like end up in this like carrot existence where there's nothing else but that. And with that came like, you know, it's a tantric experience. I end up in bliss. And the moment I opened my eyes, because we were having only 6 minutes to eat, so I would like completely let go of the idea of time, you know, because there was this like feeling in the air of everybody, we got 6 minutes, the scoffing, like the mad animal scoffing and greed and all of that was so unbearable that I had to find the way out of that to be able to eat. And so after the whole process of that, I'd open my eyes and they'd all be kind of glaring at me with this hatred. But it was something that I started to do 3 times a day, because we were taken to this food hall 3 times a day. And it wasn't with an agenda. I didn't say, okay, now I'm going to do this and then it's going to give me that. It just gradually happened that the intelligence of the system was finding ways to bring itself into states of bliss without a plan.
Yeah.
And there was nobody in that. And there was no prisoner and there was no victim and there was no... So I kind of disappeared as a separate... After some time, you know, I would say it took 18 months maybe. And then I was just the space of being. And then, you know, there were some experiences that happened, but the experiences are not it. They're significant in the moment.
Yeah.
But changed everything. And yeah, after that, but I didn't have a label, oh, now I'm awake. I didn't have some kind of story like I've woken up, or it was just that I was in a completely, you know, and at night, like I heard you speak about dream states, at night, I never slept for about 2 years. I was lucid dreaming. Every night I'd go wherever I wanted in, you know, I'd go to different countries. I'd be in shops taking off the shelf exactly what I wanted. You know, I'd be in this like these other worlds, and these states were going on constantly, but I never had any kind of label like this is this or now I'm awake. Or I came out of there and was shocked to come back, be deported back to England and into my father's house, and suddenly I was like supposed to be this daughter again. And
wow, that's trippy.
it was really trippy.
That's trippy. That's almost like
I
God,
knew I
that's just
wasn't.
almost like a time traveler, you know?
Yeah.
God, you said a lot there. What you were saying about the tantric thing, though, that's what I was talking about. Like I became, that's like when people talk about AI, and everyone has their own opinions. Mine's not, I'm not saying mine's the truth.
Yeah.
But people would talk about AI is going to do this and AI that. And I'm like, I look at it like, okay, wait a minute. That's the same God substance I am, right? If everything out there I'm looking at is the same thing. Now it may have a certain charge to it or a certain proclivity or energy to it, you know, dark, light, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I can engage, embrace that fearlessly and work to transform it. I'm not recommending people do this. I'm just saying this has been my evolution, is to not push things away, You can't divorce yourself from any part of the universe because you are the universe, right? So there's something about that. That's one thing I can relate to that, and I can attest to that. Eating McDonald's, I know what they do. It's just, but at the same time, it was about how I looked at it and what relationship I had with it. So over that 2 years, the same thing happened to me. I could feel it. I could feel it working with me, right? And the other thing that you were talking about too is how when you engage, let's say, external things of the universe, be it from here, or when you tap into this relationship that you're talking about, it expands. It doesn't just, you don't just come together like 1 + 1 = 2. It actually, when you use it and you tap into it, it actually starts to grow. And like you were saying, it has its own, the system has its own intelligence that recognizes, I don't know how to say this, but recognizes transformation. It recognizes collaboration. And there's almost like a Holy Spirit or a third energy that's working with you, that's saying, hey, this door just opened, or this door just opened, or this person just called you and you needed something, or, there's something about it that to me, I always say that's the real virus.
What's
That's
the real virus?
Well, just that energy of collaboration, kind of that infinity sign energy of, like, when you engage the food, you started to eat, this relationship starts, and then it starts to grow, like you're going anywhere you wanted to, was like a metaphor of that too. Like first it was you, then it was the cell, then it was the building, then it was, you know what I mean? So there's something about engaging that, what's that old saying? Where your focus goes, energy grows, or whatever. I don't remember. But but so that can be either the dark polarity, if we want to use that term, or it can be this other polarity. And the thing for me is the polarity that we've been so affixed to. We know that one. Like there's nothing new being told to us there. It's not like but if you go the other way, you don't know anything.
It's
In fact, you know less and less and less, but your experience gets bigger, bigger and bigger, right?
But the ego cannot go there. And that is the thing, is that, I would say in that whole situation I was describing, that was survival, but it wasn't survival for the ego.
Right.
Right. It's the way that the system found a way to survive, but it wasn't survival for the ego. If the ego is looking for a way to survive, it wants to have knowledge, it wants to have, it kind of shrinks down into, like the fear makes it hold on to things, and especially information and identification. But survival for the soul level is out the door. It's, it's like what I call going out the door. It's the unknown. That's survival, and that's where I could. And I think a lot of people in that situation don't wake up, and it's not. You can hear many. I guess you do, because you're talking with a lot of people. That extreme circumstance can often be the vehicle in which the door opens, but it's not for everyone. That sometimes the extreme circumstance can become the trauma, damage, hell realm. And I feel that we're in a time where, even though what is free will, there's no free will for the ego, and yet in recognizing what we are, free will comes along with that I don't really know how to express that.
No, I got that. It's like I get that, what you're saying, because I'm a big believer that for me, I like to keep things simple. It's like, so if I can align my free will with universal will, well, what is universal will? Universal will is just expansion.
Yeah.
It's going out there, and it's not stagnant. I think that's I can see what you're talking about. But like the things that come from giving life to that which makes no sense at all. From the human perspective, it makes no sense at all. That 2 years, and it's really interesting what you're saying too about the ego and the soul, because I can talk and write pretty good, but I could never put this into words until right now. Something that was always in my head. So the first 2 years, I chose to go into that lifestyle. Everything had been taken, or whatever you want to call it. Kids, no kids in the house, no house. I had kids for 23 years in the house, and now I don't have any. Relationship over, no home, no car, no money, no job, reputation, everything, freedom, being jailed, and so on. But the thing is every day I would walk. I would just take my stuff and I would just walk. And I was in a lot of pain, right? A lot of human pain, identity pain, right? As a father, as a this, as a that, whatever. And I always thought, is this my fucking ego that's having me walk? But I realized it wasn't my ego. My ego was, I'd be walking and all of a sudden I would just start crying.
Yeah.
And my ego would want to stop. My ego wanted to commit suicide. My ego wanted to get killed fighting or whatever the case was.
Right.
But there was something moving my legs.
Yes.
That was giving me life, and that was something I always wondered about. So I had this conversation. I thought that was and I knew it was my soul, but I knew my ego was right there. But that wasn't my ego moving the legs.
Right.
Even though in my head I was going, don't ever give up on me. I'm not quitting. Even though in my head, that night when I'm sleeping behind a building or something, I'm going, get me the fuck out of here,
Right.
So yeah, I appreciate that that information, because I always wondered about that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And
What,
that, I feel like when more and more people, more and more beings can actually trust that, can actually trust that there's that movement that is like in the face of so much destruction and breaking down and things not working on a certain level in the life, there's something else which is moving towards its own light. When the trust, it's a trust that has no doubt. I like to say, it's not the trust that is the opposite to doubt.
Yeah. When I was on the streets, I obviously, like many of us, when you reawaken, you pull in a lot of downloads. And one day I got this one, go look up faith in the dictionary. I'm like, faith, I don't need to look that up, but I went to look it up, and there was 2 definitions, but there was a third one, and it was a transitive verb. Now, I've never even heard of a transitive verb, but I knew that signified motion, right? And it said to trust and believe. That's all it said. And I went, that's it right there. Like, that walking was faith. That was that thing you're talking about. And I don't know about you, but because I certainly, and I knew this when it was happening to me, the people are suffering far worse than I am. I knew that. So 50 years old, homeless, and lost everything. Hey, that's nothing compared to like someone like you. But one of the things that I found too is that a person could lose their mind, literally lose, go off the farm, lose their marbles, totally lose it, and find the light at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my experience. Yeah. Yeah, I also have a brother who's like in those extremes. It is amazing to see how much destruction and how much lostness, and at the same time, there is this like clarity. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But whether we don't know whether the ego will survive, or we don't know. It can all be there at the same time and never, it's it brings us back to that question: is there any way free will? I kind of rest in, we live what we came here for. We're all living what we came here for.
Yeah.
If we need to live something out, we're going to live it out. And I think we're really in a time right now where trust is something that, it's like it's so deep in our knowing. It's not of the mind, it's not of the belief of you may not believe it, but still there's a trust that just knows that I'm living what I came here for. And to stay with this, no matter what, in the face of everything being torn down, nothing can take this.
Well, true. And as within, without, too, right? I mean, you were saying that earlier. All this stuff coming up is our stuff, isn't it? Like it's a reflection of what we're seeing out there, is a reflection of the stuff in us that,
Yeah.
I guess, in a way, we've given our power away to, such as.
In a way, what? Say that again.
It's like, in a way, I guess, these things that are coming up are things that we've given our power away to.
Yes.
Now, it may not look exactly the same, but whatever we're being presented with is being projected from us, which means we must have done it. Like, how often do, I mean, we look at something that's been, like, even say, being put into the system as a perpetrator, as a convicted, person, and say it's a very unjust scenario. Like, it's just not fair. It just doesn't make sense. But where have I done that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
where does that live in me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I know that I have within me some narcissistic frequencies. And
Well,
that's
go on.
go ahead. Go ahead.
If we're able to rest in the space of whole existence itself, existential beingness, then everything that's in this human consciousness is within that, right?
Yes.
So whatever we're seeing or knowing in the whole collective, we're knowing it within ourselves. Where else are we knowing it?
Yeah. We're knowing it to know it, aren't we? We're knowing it to know it. Like,
knowing it to realize it.
Yeah, knowing it to, like you said, we're here to experience something, and that's, I mean, on one hand, it's weird because it's like, don't take it too seriously, but everything's got a purpose. Everything has got code or information.
Right there. That's the paradox. It's
exactly.
Like all and nothing. There's nobody here, and yet we're everybody.
How do you get along with your ego now, after all these years? What role does it play, if any? Is it just sitting in the back seat with its seatbelt on, with a?
It's freely here. I feel like ego is needed. It's to be in a human form. There needs to be a sense of self, if that's what we're calling ego. There will always be a sense of self. It's the difference is the identification with that, like taking that to be I. So when it's freely here as a sense of self, that's kind of like, it knows boundaries. It knows clear boundaries, you know, like I need to have clear boundaries and not allow someone to overtake my space. I put a boundary there. Why? Because I have a sense of self. So we could call that like a sense of ego. You need it to cross the road in the first place. You need a boundary. So it's a sense of a healthy ego. I call it a healthy ego, is needed. It's maturity, you know, and to be able to relate with each other, we need a healthy ego. But it's not what I am, and that's freely here, you know. It's like it can get touched, a button can get pushed, it can get triggered or whatever, but that's not what I am. So therefore I can just experience it freely. Ego got a bad rap, ego got a bad name, but it's the identification with that sense of self that then wants everything for itself, and the whole world revolving around this sense of me. It's got to be about me. I want that for me. I'm the one. This identification with that sense then has ramifications that are the root of suffering. So it's not that ego is guilty or a bad thing. It's non-existent anyway. It's a sense of identity. You can't find it. Try to find it. Where will you find it? Where is it? Where does it exist? So it's a sensation of identity that when we identify, when awareness, when what we are as consciousness identifies with that, then it takes the place of I am. And then that is the root of separation, suffering, the hell realm that we're seeing so strongly in our collective. But yeah, healthy ego has a role. It's not that it's not to be here, like
I like that.
It's
I like
free.
that. I used to tell my kids that you know, on one hand I'd say you are the center of the universe, you are the universe, and then at other times I'd say you're not the center of the universe. And speaking to the ego side. And you mentioned you know, your assimilation, you know, back into the world, and then you just mentioned how the ego can get pushed and triggered and such, and I love the fact that you're open about that. Going back to your post as well, we take on this belief system, our ego, and we say we got this shit figured out, and we don't. We're always, and that's okay. That's the whole thing, is to learn and expand. But what do you do? I'm curious. What do you do? Do you get triggered? And if so, what do you do to get back to balance?
Yeah, beautiful. What really, when I was describing that about coming back into the back into the world of relativity once I was deported back, everything was triggered, everything, and I couldn't quite understand how can I, I'm knowing this being that is free, and now there's all this like drama coming up. There's all this possession and jealousy and rejection and all those things getting touched. And so that for me really was the beginning of inquiring into how do I live knowing what I really am? How do I live with all of this while it's all still? And that became a living inquiry, which, I can say that inquiry has been alive for over 20 years, and that is the kind of work that I've been doing with people in the groups and retreats that I've been holding for the last 20 years. I realized quite like I was in a relationship. That's the best thing to trigger everything, right? So when that was all moving everything, I had to question, how can I be with this? How can I be honest with myself in the midst of this? How can I meet this? And to let all of those aspects come home in the truth that I am is like energies, lost children, aspects of consciousness that just only wait to be included, to be met, to be felt, to be experienced, to be welcome, to be embodied. You know, to experience that as waves of energy coming back to its own source, to sit right in that, to experience it directly, intimately, knowing that who is actually here, you know, what is actually here. And there's this meeting of consciousness with sensation, and the touch of me-ness. It's like that sting of egoic, like sting, the touch of that being like met so intimately is opening that energy back to itself. It's beautiful. It's the homecoming. And yeah, been walking with that for a long time. So the system now has that as a default, that something is touched, I go, I'm meeting it. I'm in right relationship with that, meeting it, feeling it all the way. And then it's gone. It's got there's nothing for it to stick to. It doesn't stick and get carried like a weight that then has a thing going around that it needs to prove itself, or retaliation, or that it exists as an energy that it just doesn't. It comes back to self-love. Yeah,
I get what you're saying. It's like being recognized. Like, so, you know, we think about separation and all the programming and the, you know, the whatever, but it actually happens right here. Something happens, there's an immediate separation because we don't like the way it feels, or we don't like what we think of ourselves, or whatever. But like you're talking about bringing them back, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk about
through the doorway of feeling.
Yes. Well, that seems to be the way we operate in this existence that we're coming into, this awareness we're coming into of ourselves and what we might call the world or reality, right? I mean, it's all through feeling, right?
Yeah,
It really is.
Through going right to the heart of whatever feeling is there, as you said, it expands open into the whole cosmos. So it's through the doorway of feeling, even if it's a feeling we don't want. Once we go there, through that doorway, it opens. And it's beautiful. And how much of a lifetime have we like avoided feeling what doesn't feel good? You know, with alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever was always to move away from what didn't feel good. We tried to get a better feeling. But actually, the better feeling is right in the heart of every feeling.
Yeah, that's what all that stuff was trying to feel something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The sex, drugs, rock and roll.
It was good.
Would you say that would you say there's, when it comes to embodiment, because that's a word that's used a lot too, right? Like the words we were talking about.
Yeah.
That one probably hasn't taken as much extra stuff on because it's kind of a embodiment means embodiment. But what I was going to ask you was, would you say that applies more to embodying our multidimensional aspects, or embodying those human aspects that we separated ourselves from?
I would say both. Yeah, it's really because it comes hand in hand. It comes together. Like when we embody the human aspects, when our human is coming aligned to our depth,
Right.
then the depth comes through the personality or through the human behaviors. So our behaviors begin to change. Whereas in the beginning of what we call awakening, waking up, it can seem like there's this realization, but the behaviors are belonging to yesteryear. You know, like there's still old behaviors that belong to the alcoholic or the traumatized child, or those old behaviors are still acting out. But as we start to embody the feelings and go to the wound and feel everything that's been denied, then quite naturally, I would say, those behaviors begin to change. And what we really know to be true and deep and come from honesty and love, I feel honesty is a real doorway, is a real key. Then that begins to change the behavior, where, you know, we might, like an old behavior might kick in, and then we see it and go, come on, come with me, and just kind of bring that little one, that little aspect, that child wound, over to, come here, let's be honest, let's go. And we start, the truth starts to speak through the language of the psychological self, instead of the lies it tells itself to keep itself safe.
Right.
So the embodiment, it's all like, to come back to your question, you're embodying what you really are as you embody those old behaviors, and it's up-leveled, an update. Instead of saying an upgrade as if you're achieving something, there's an update. You don't actually achieve something with an update. Well, you might get a better computer with a better program, but you know, there's an update. It gets updated, and it's beautiful, because we attract the people to us to play something else, to play something out, to bring about that update. Because if we're committed to honesty, there's going to be an update.
Yeah, it's like what you're saying is embodiment is it's like walking the talk. It's like what I'm hearing you say is, I don't have to go back and find every single little thing that's not embodied or that's separated me from myself. Exactly. If I can just take the information that I've got up to this point and I can actually live it, then those things will be presented to me.
Yes.
You know, to realign with myself.
Beautifully expressed. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, because it is, we talk about conscious living, and I know people, you know, again, the connotations of the words, but really what you're talking about, I mean, to me, it's the humility and the integrity, which is the honesty, right? I mean, and first was self. I mean, like, you can't fake the humility.
No.
And if you don't have it, the universe will certainly apply experiences so that you will. And then you have the integrity part, which the other way I look at it too is, like, people talk about being authentic. So, you know, okay, I'm going to have the awareness to be authentic, and that's going to put me in situations that are going to make me vulnerable, which is, I think that part of it is what you're talking about, where because you're consciously living and applying and walking the talk, these old things that were in your subconscious come up to be seen. And then from that vulnerability, you have a choice to be in integrity and in honesty. And then from there, it becomes this transparency.
Yes.
Which
beautiful.
I think is like the physical manifestation of our experience. You might call it the physicalization of telepathy. Beautiful. Like, if I meet you, you meet me, and we're in that field, then we know exactly we don't just know what we're thinking, we know everything about the other, which is really more information about myself. So
there's a meeting of one knowing itself. And how you were just going with that is really beautiful. what came for me was that integrity and that humility and that honesty has to begin within our own psyche. Can we really be honest with ourselves in the first place? Mm-hmm. Can we tell the truth inside? You know, like, because we've got so used to kind of like giving a false face out there that it can happen in here, where we actually trick ourselves into believing that we're right about something. Yes. And if we can just admit to ourselves inside that we actually are playing an old game that needs to drop, you know, that right there is such a freedom. We free ourselves, and then it's kind of, we get the opportunity to put that outside. And
right on.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's
there is nothing more delicious than a true meeting. This movement of integrity and honesty and all the thing that you were describing, it's so fulfilling.
Yeah, that's thought provoking. Yeah, I was going to ask you along those lines too. I mean, I can relate to, I think a lot of people here can relate to it. You know, there's a lot of things we say and they sound really good, and we've heard them for a long time, even going back to sacred texts, go within, so on. But there's a big difference between consciously applying it and just being able to say it and say you know it. And I put myself in that category. But one of those things is actually taking responsibility, not just from this point going forward, but everything that's happened to me. Like everything that's been, like I used to hear back in those days, circumstances and consequences are the same thing.
Circumstances and consequences.
So in other words, is it a circumstance or is it a consequence of something somebody did to me? Right. So it was basically taking the external out of it, saying it doesn't matter at this point whether someone did it to you or you did it. You did it. It's all you, you know. So it's, I think it would go along with that thing about how you, when you elevate, you actually you change the past, so to speak. Yeah. You change, and there's truth to that, certainly from an energetic level. But like, did you have a point where you just said, this is all my gig, I'm taking full responsibility from this point on? I mean, did that happen to you when you were in solitary?
No, I don't know. So many moments happened in there, you know, so many moments of dying and facing so many moments and breaking down, completely breaking down, and then rising up out of the ashes again, you know, more innocent, more, but yeah, I mean, I think from the beginning, when I was in there, I knew it was mine. I knew I put myself there. I knew this was for me. You know, I knew, as much as there were many voices going on, like, how am I going to get out? What if this didn't happen and that didn't happen and this person didn't do that, and who put me here, and all of that going on at the same time, this knowing that I put myself here. Yeah. You know, this is for me. And yeah, I think those moments have arisen throughout the life in many difficult circumstances. I mean, that was probably the most extreme, but there's been plenty of other challenge. I think in certain moments there have been like facing myself and going, you put yourself here, you know.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
Yeah. And at the same time, there's a knowing deeper than that, that's like, all of it has been for this, you know, so we could have this conversation right now and be able to meet the way we do. All of it is for this. And all it's ever been about is for this to deepen and reveal itself ever more. So whatever has needed to be lived through or is needed to go through, it's all for this in the end, you know.
What are your feelings about, I know I'm keeping you extra long, but we're
I
almost
know,
done.
it's happening.
What are your feelings about creation, about creating? I hesitate to use the word manifestation. I like the word creating much better. What are your thoughts on that? You know, there's so much talk. I never really resonated with the law of attraction and The Secret, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that there was something missing for me, almost like not considering the dark in that school of thought. But what are your thoughts on? Okay, so we're aware, we've got enough information, we know what's going on, we know we're bigger than that. Now, what do I want to do? Like from that point of view, like what are your thoughts on creation, how we can best do that, or anything you might have on that
Yeah,
subject?
this is something that I'm really facing myself at the moment, because there is a knowing that, you know, I'm kind of living okay, I'm here right now in this beautiful space of openness, and I have space, I have silence, I have space, and within that, creativity itself is like all of the obstacles are removed. The obstacles of that weigh down the life are removed in this moment. There's,
Right.
I have a little gap, right? And in that, naturally, what I am as creativity itself is rising up, and it's here. It's life itself, pure creativity without obstacles.
Right.
And I can feel it. I can feel like I'm in my place. I'm in like right now. All the obstacles removed. I feel creativity like coming to express itself in, you know, like I don't know what, but it's here. It's alive. And at the same time, I have a commitment to, you know, my father is with dementia, quite sick, and there's nobody to, you know, I'm like overseeing his situation. And for that reason, I've been in a kind of sacrificial role the last 5 years. And I soon fly back to that situation in which I place myself in a limitation where there's a lot of pressures and there's a lot of I don't have my space. I have the obstacles of on my time and on my space, you know. So, and within that, the creativity that I'm speaking about that's here now is kind of, there's a weight on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what comes really clear to me in these days, in fact, I was speaking of this last night on our like a members community, I was speaking there, how all we need to really do to be in, because guy was asking me about how do I get in the God space? How do I let the creativity of, call it God, whatever you want to call it, the intelligence come through and create? And the response was and is that all we ever really need to do is remove the obstacles, remove and create space, that there is space enough for who we are to have the space to be. And out of this, you know, it's breaking down the obstacles of repetitive life that's in the mundane clockwork schedule. All of that kind of creates a kind of a weight around this free creativity that godliness is. I'm using another word that's kind of overused, to say the least. But yeah, pure creativity is our nature.
Yeah.
And when our nature is, you know, confined, that creativity is kind of suppressed somehow.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good way to look at it. I mean, because like we know this through science and study that psychologically, physiologically, fear suppresses creativity. You know, I mean, it's just, but
Absolutely.
I like what
Yeah.
you're saying, because there's less emphasis, and even when it comes to what am I going to create, it's more like, you know, creating that space. And I like the way you describe that too, because a lot of times we do talk about boundaries, like you talked about it earlier, but it's almost like there's no need for me to protect myself. And in that same, you know, in that same type of respect, I don't even need to think about what I need to create, because I've created this boundless space, which is me, however I had to do it. And whatever my heart, the universe knows my heart. So it's going to bring me to that which meant, you know what I mean? So I get that. That's a good way to
In a
look
way,
at it.
another word that's really, really overused is channel, right?
Yeah.
Channeling, ooh la la. But in a way, to use that word in its proper place, once the obstacles and the space has been created, what's here is a channel
Mhm.
for godliness to express itself
Right.
creatively. And you know, it's like we get on here and we have this conversation, we don't need to know what is the conversation.
Right.
It's creativity flowing, and it's creating that space for, okay, now use me, whatever me is, you know, whatever me is. Each one of us has a unique gift when, you know, every one of us is bringing the same creativity through, but expressing itself in such a unique flavor, or and that's beautiful. And it is such, for that to be crushed or held back is when a life doesn't feel lived somehow, because it's the creativity of life, isn't it?
Yeah. That's it. That's it. It's all about that. Made in the image. You know, made in the image to me is something created us, and we just continue to create, kind of thing, right?
How can we not be that created us? How can we not be it if it
That's what
created
it's
itself?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Good way to start the week. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. And again, thank you for coming in. And Ananta Kranti, I know you can find her on Facebook, and she talked about a group she has. So check her page out. Yeah. So I wish you the best. Best with you and your father and all your loved ones. All blessings to you. All blessings to your endeavors and all that. And I just want to say, until we meet again,
Yeah,
thanks
thank you.
again.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye everyone, whoever's there.